Hello, friends. Loose, what did you do? My dog definitely did something she wasn't supposed to, but oh well, here we are. Okay, so I promised you guys a Metamorphosis video, so here it is. Sorry, I'm a little punch drunk. Just kidding. I wish I was drunk. No, sorry. Just kidding. Anyway, so I'm going to just get started with that after I just answer this quick question. Only if you used outside source. Sorry, I should have answered this first. Outside source. Okay, so the Metamorphosis. I know it's a thrill a minute ride, right, guys? I mean, it's only 3 parts. It's really not that, it's not that difficult to wade through. It's not, there's not really a language barrier as with some other readings that we might have had already. Sorry, I just finished dinner and then I sucked down a chocolate milkshake. So it's been a great time. Being pregnant's great fun. Anyway, I'm now looking up my one thing that I have that I like to discuss with the Metamorphosis, and I gotta find it. One day I'll have all this stuff like ready to go before I actually start talking, but here we are. Okay, all right. I believe I have it up now. Just gotta look for the information on Kafka himself. So, I apologize. I just want to look at this thing. I don't know if you guys can hear my kid, but he's cool. So, all right. So anyway, Franz Kafka was born in 1883. And just so we know, I was pulling up my notes because I can't just spew this stuff off of the top of my head. I'm not that good, not yet. And he lived a fairly boring life. Grew up in a middle-class Jewish family. He worked for an insurance company, which is very closely related to this story. Most stories of his were published after his death against his wishes, which is actually a pretty common theme with many writers, whether they're poets or, novel writers. Not sure what it is about publishing, like while they're alive and why they don't want it. And obviously we'll never know, but here we are. His writings also coined the term Kafkaesque. Okay, and it's used to describe the bizarre and fantastical. I know, exciting stuff, right, guys? And then if I also remember, he was kind of a loner. So he did not, why isn't my computer working today? This is what happens when you multitask. He did, he wasn't an only child. He actually did have many siblings. But he was, pretty reclusive for the most part. He explored a lot of his writings, I should say, explore the ideas of alienation or existentialism, existential anxiety, like what happens after I die, guilt, absurdity. So things like that, things that really heavily relate to this particular story. You have a few themes, okay? So we have family ties, the mind and body, and then alienation in modern life. Those are kind of go-to themes. And I know that those are kind of hard themes to really pinpoint, but regardless. So family ties, Gregor, from what we can tell, because now we're only given this entire story through Gregor's point of view. Okay, we don't get any other point of views. We don't get the sister. We don't get the parents, nobody else. We just get Gregor's and his thoughts because it's all written from his perspective. So we see that he has this love for his sister, and that not that he doesn't love his parents. However, it's definitely loves his sister more than he loves his parents. And he has, I don't know, a better connection, I guess, with his sister. I don't know how else I want to phrase that. So I'm so sorry. This is what happens when you feed me. I'm tired. So his emotions at the very beginning are from, you know, a little bit of fear because, you know, who wouldn't be afraid if they woke up as a giant bug? To, you know, to love and compassion because his family is caring for him, to resentment and horror. He starts to hate them just as they start to hate him. These, you know, these emotions are synonymous depending on the character. So, you know, his sister feels the same way. His parents feel the same way. You know, they all love Gregor, but they don't really know what to do with him. And then let's just, you know, jump over to it that he wakes up a bug and doesn't care. I'm sorry. I don't find that believable, which is why that idea of absurdity is so heavy here, because that's just not the way the world would be. You know, his family, I would have to say, dealt with the situation pretty calmly, considering. But, you know, like his biggest concern is that, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late for work. And then the bank manager shows up and is like, hey, Gregor's not here. What's going on? And they're like, oh, we don't know. We'll find out. Let's go bang into his room. So they go into his room and they find him and they're like, oh, no, a bug. I know. Crazy. But they still are just like, they don't even think like, how did this bug get here? They immediately somehow know that that bug is Gregor. Anybody else feel like that's weird? Anyway, we'll continue on with the themes. Okay, so mind and body. In the beginning of our text, even though Gregor now no longer looks human, he looks like a bug, his thoughts pretty much stay the same as they were prior to the transformation. However, as time wears on, his thoughts kind of start to become less human and his mind starts to associate more with being the bug. He has this disconnect between his mind and his body throughout most of the story, but towards the end, it's then becomes a disconnect between, you know, reality, really, because he thinks that he'll just get better, but he won't. And then everybody else is just like, well, we just have to let him die. Rude. Okay. So alienation in modern life is now the last thing that we're going to look at. Gregor's transformation seems very absurd. And if it didn't seem absurd to you, then I don't know what to tell you. But the idea is that it represents these feelings of isolation, these feelings of being alienated, feelings that we have that are very real. Think about, you know, why is he a cockroach? Because cockroaches are gross. Okay. You know, why is Kafka choosing to make him a cockroach versus, I don't know, a caterpillar or something, or a ladybug? I don't know. Cockroaches are one of the oldest living insects. They're almost impossible to kill if you've ever seen Men in Black. The original, not the new one. Okay, so it is symbolic as to the bug Kafka chose and why he chose that particular bug. He wants it to be a disgusting bug. He wants it to be one that is not like, oh, maybe I can, you know, set it free or do this or whatever. He wants it to be a bug that you are repulsed by. Okay, so while he is transformed into this bug, we learn through Gregor's eavesdropping into his parents, that his dad was hiding money, and he's very distraught over this because he has been working his butt off to pay his parents' debt and to pay for them to live there. And he hasn't, you know, he hasn't missed a day of work in, I think he said 15 years, maybe 5. There's a 5 in there somewhere. And he was so close to paying off that loan. But now Mr. Samsa, Gregor's father, is hiding money and exaggerating the extent of his illness. So, you know, we're told that the mother faints pretty quickly and has asthma, and that the father is kind of just weak. You so with the idea of hiding money, why does, let's think about, why is he hiding money from his kids, from his wife? Why is he doing that? And then that brings us to another motif called livelihood. These are the concerns of the Samsa family, is how are we going to survive? Gregor has been carrying the weight of this family because Greta is still in school, the sister. And then Mr. and Mrs. Samsa are, they're ill, for lack of a better term. So they can't work. So he has been quite literally carrying the weight of this. And maybe it was that, he just thought, one day, what happens if I wake up and I'm, I can't do this anymore? What happens to my family? Okay, so that's that existential, what do I want to call it? Shoot, where is it? I just had it. Anxiety. Sorry, pregnancy brain doesn't work. Okay, so his existential anxiety is, what happens if I die and my parents can't, how are they going to survive if I were to go? I'm all they have. Okay, so you have your main characters of the office manager, who is the one that first comes in and discovers that he is a bug. You have Mr. Samsa, who's very hostile. The first instance that he really gets is that he throws stuff at him. He shoos him back into his room. Towards the end, he ends up throwing an apple that gets lodged in his back. This is a big deal. That's kind of the beginning of his demise, the beginning of his downfall. But he's a very hostile man towards Gregor. And maybe that's because he lost his, his workhorse. I don't know. Then you have Mrs. Samsa, who is Gregor's mom, and is completely disgusted by her son's appearance. Every time she walks into the room to look at him, she faints. So he started to cover himself by hiding underneath the couch that's in his room, hiding under a blanket, just to make it a little easier so that she could still come into the room, but not have to see him, to feed him, to clean up a little bit, because obviously he's not using a bathroom like a toilet. Okay, then we have Gregor himself. He's a bug. It's cool. It's fine. And then Greta. So Gregor is aspiring to send her to the conservatory to be a violinist. Okay. At the very beginning of Gregor's transformation, she pities him and it says, that is your son. That is my brother. Like, we have to help him. We have to do whatever we can. But then she's also the one at the end that says, it's time we move on. We need to let this go. We can't stay trapped here. And then last but not least, we have the charwoman. Essentially, she's a maid. Okay. She's very blunt. She performs her duties and is not afraid of Gregor. Why? Maybe because it's just what she is, like, because she's a maid and she's probably seen bugs before. Maybe not giant bugs, but whatever. I don't know really why she's not afraid, but she's not afraid. And that's fine. That's totally fine. So we have those, those ideas. The renters are not really that important. They are, but they're not. They're the ones that kind of expose Gregor, because Greta plays the violin for them, and then he sneaks out, and that's when Dad is like, you need to go back, you wretched creature, and throws the apple and it gets stuck. It was, that's what I thought. Okay, it was 15 years that he hadn't missed work. There's a picture at the beginning that he describes, and it's this woman that's in fur. Okay, she has a fur coat on, and this is symbolic because he clings to this advertisement of the woman, and when his mom and his sister go to clean out the room to try to give him more room to kind of roam about, he clings to that. He still wants that, and it's because it's that lost, it's a symbol of lost, like lost beauty. Okay, he lost humanity for him, the lost idea of modern life. So he's very, he very much still wants to cling to the human part of his life, and he doesn't know how. So he's going to, sorry, excuse me. he's going to attach himself to this picture. So he's attaching himself to the idea of what he has lost in his own life. One of the other symbols is uniforms. So Gregor has a uniform. His father has a uniform, and when he puts on his uniform, once his father gets a job, he has this sense of pride, okay, that it symbolizes that I'm doing something for my family. It's more than just a piece of clothing. It's more than like, oh, I'm off to work. Okay, so for the Samsas, it signifies stability, okay? And that's a big deal for all of them. Let me see what else I wanted to talk about with this particular story. I want to say that was kind of most of it. I believe it was. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to just double check one thing real fast. Bear with me, guys. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I mean, we could talk about what Greta first gives him. The first time she goes in there to try to feed him, she gives him an assortment of different foods, spoiled foods, really good foods. He goes for the spoiled foods because obviously, since he's no longer human, his taste has changed. I guess we could talk about the end. So we could question that Gregor's death is only okay in the eyes of Gregor and the readers because Greta is now going to be the caretaker of the parents and care for their finances. It is very disturbing, but he also, him realizing that they're going to be okay without him makes him feel like I can let go. So when he finally dies and, the family discovers that he's dead, they feel relief. We don't have to take care of you anymore. We don't have to wonder about like what to do with you. We don't have to feel guilty about if we wanted to leave. So his body just kind of sits there. And the last scene that we get is Greta and her parents on the train leaving to somewhere else. And they start to think about how beautiful, the parents start to think about how beautiful Greta is and that she needs to find a husband. So, and why does she need to find a husband? Most likely because they don't want to work anymore. Because unfortunately, the parents are very selfish. And it's quite sad, but, it is what it is. Obviously, identity is another theme. I just didn't talk about it. I think that one's pretty obvious. Why would he think of himself as a cockroach? Maybe he finds humanity disgusting. Maybe he finds himself disgusting. There's many different ways you could look at it. Sorry, my kid's like screaming. He's in the bathtub. Apparently, I guess he's watching a little too much TikTok. Anyway, okay, so that is my rundown on the Metamorphosis. It is not, it's nothing too fancy. But those are the essentially the highlights of the text. Who does the most transforming here in this text? Is it Gregor because he goes through a physical transformation? Is it Greta because she has to grow up from a 16-year-old girl to a woman? Is it the parents? So who's doing the real transforming here? We all know that metamorphosis means to transform. So if we take that literally, who is doing it? Or is no one doing it? That's always possible. No. Sorry, my husband just said, "Are you ready to get out?" And I was like, no, I like my time without him up my butt. So these are things to think about when you go to write your short essay. I do want to address that again real fast. Bear with me. I just want to pull that up really quickly. Wrong folder, you dumb shit. Short essay rubric. Okay, so your possible topics. Let me just share my screen real fast. Okay, so how do Gregor's feelings change for his family over the course of the story? What is the major conflict and is it resolved? Obviously, the major conflict is going to be that he woke up as a bug. So do we feel that it's resolved or no? How is the metamorphosis similar to Greta's and how is it different? Obviously, the biggest difference is that Greta's not a bug. But what is similar in their metamorphosis? And then last but not least, Kafka, if you guys are looking, this is where I'm at, okay? Kafka grants us the access to Gregor's thoughts and Gregor's thoughts only. So we learn about all of our other characters, what they look like, how they act, how they move, how they function, through Gregor's eyes and his mind. Essentially, we are inside of his head and as he's having this entire internal monologue, I should say. How does this perspective affect our understanding of the story? So is it because we're only getting one side? Are we only getting one side or are we getting two? Because it seems like the narrator kind of goes back and forth between being Gregor's, internal thoughts and a little bit of third person omniscient, the person that can kind of see all things. So with that said, those are your topics. I know that it is 8 o'clock on Wednesday night as I'm doing this video. Oh, they're yelling. This is why I do bath time. It's dangerous. I have been summoned. Anyway, so that's kind of the rundown on the Metamorphosis. It is a classic. I'm not going to go so far as to call it a novel. It's a novella. It is a short story. It's only 70 pages, so it can't really be granted the title of a novel. Another thing you could do is, why does Kafka, split it up into 3 parts versus just having one story of 70 pages or 2 parts, pre-borders, after borders? I don't know. What do the 3 different parts of the story symbolize? I don't know. Let's see, anything else? I don't think so. Let me just double check everything. Read Metamorphosis. Your short essay is due. That's right. Okay, perfect. So I think that's it. I'm going to leave you guys with these, tidbits of knowledge on the Metamorphosis, and I will see you guys short. Yes, because Monday you'll get a new video. So bye guys, have a good rest of your day. Don't forget you have a quiz on Friday. It'll be open all day, but it closes at midnight. So make sure you take the quiz, okay? Bye guys.